Robert Kiyosaki. Been a fan for a long time.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You've been an inspiration to many. And I think even though you're a financial wizard of our time, I think some of my the way I see you as an inspiration is your outspoken critique of communism, of the political climate, and where we're at and where we're going. Now, I think that this is going to be a pretty deep conversation, so I'm going to start with the lighthearted one I usually end with. And that's, what's your favorite film of all time?
Boy, it's a tough one. Oh, A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men?
With Jack Nicholson.
Well, that courtroom scene is something.
You can't handle the truth.
Truth, right. That is a great... Did you know that when there was a one-camera shoot on that? And so when they were shooting Tom Cruise's part, I believe they did it for a day or a day and a half. He repeated that over and over and over and over. And they said he hit it every time the same way. Jack Nicholson, to allow Tom Cruise to play off him. And then they turned the camera and got his part the next day.
Uh-huh.
I was going to start with a question of communism. Is it the world's most destructive force, or is it a natural disaster or nuclear war? But I know from a natural disaster and a nuclear war you can recover. Where when communism sets in, they usually kill off the best brains and it gets seeded and can become extremely destructive for a culture, a society, and peoples. What are your thoughts?
I'm a U.S. Marine. We go back about my story on this whole thing was that in 1965, I graduated from high school in Hawaii. I got sent to a military school. I had appointments to a Naval Academy and Merchant Marine Academy. I took the Merchant Marine Academy because we're the highest paid graduates in the world. I liked money. And at the academy, my economics teacher required us to read the Communist Manifesto. I think that should be required reading.
Absolutely.
Everybody should read that book, because when I read it, I went, oh my God, my family are communists, but they don't know it. And so at the age of 18, when I was reading the Communist Manifesto, my economics teacher was a West Point graduate, and he flew B-17s in World War II. He got shot down 3 times and captured once, escaped twice. And he was talking to us what it was like to fight the Russians. And then my aunt, who was a prima ballerina of Paris, she fought for the French underground because she hated the Russians also. And I'm going, well, how come? I mean, they hated them. They hated the Russians. And I couldn't, but I didn't know why, because you don't have experience of them.
Because they were allies.
Huh?
Because they were allies in the, right, with ours.
But the thing was that Vietnam was out in 65, so I graduated in 69. The Vietnam War was still on. The Arab-Israeli War, 67, had just finished. And I went to my economics teacher, the West Point graduate, and I asked him a question. I said, what's it like to fly against the Russians, get shot down, get captured and all that? And he just laughed and he just said, there's only one way you're going to find out. Go do it yourself. So I turned down, I was working for Standard Oil, making a lot of money as a tanker officer, an oil tanker. My business is oil. And I quit that job. I was making about $120,000 a year. And 1969 for a 21-year-old kid, that's not bad money.
That's a lot of money back
even
then.
Today. But anyway, I went from $120,000 a year to $200 a month to be a Marine Corps pilot. And I went to Vietnam to find out what it's like to fight communism. And so I killed a lot of them. And they killed a lot of us. So I do know what I'm talking about when it's about how strange it is. But this is the most disturbing thing I saw, because I got in trouble for saying this. I was in Vietnam just as the North Vietnamese crossed the DMZ. And there was a battle called the Battle of Quang Tri. Not as famous as Tet, Hue, and all this other stuff. But I was watching the NVA fight the South Vietnamese army. I'm a helicopter gunship pilot flying in and out of them, And I noticed something very strange. So I came back I was a carrier pilot also. And we came back to the squadron that night. And I said, I have a question. How come their Vietnamese fight harder than our Vietnamese? Those NVA came down with such force and intention and commitment. They were like running, shooting, and our guys were turning and running. The South Vietnamese were turning and running. So my question all the time, how come they fight harder than us? Why do the communists fight harder than we do? It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
So,
Do you think that? Do you see essence and a movement of communism in this country
of course, yes.
through a lot, not just through a few people either, not the fringes. This is moving into mainstream.
Yeah. Well, look at woke and all this. I just can't. How can people be that stupid? I mean, how can they have more discussion on whether your child's transgender or not? And I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad under one question. I said, why don't we teach money at school? Why don't they teach money?
Well, I guess you'd have to start with the fact that the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor has any reserve. And they really don't want to let that out. They don't really want to let people out on the fact that they're printing a fake currency, a fiat currency that's based off debt. Here's something I wanted to ask you too. I hear all the time people are, we need to pay down the debt. We need to pay down the debt. How can you pay down the debt on a fiat currency that has interest attached to it? It's a Ponzi scheme, is it not?
Well, it's worse than that. A fiat currency is debt.
Yeah.
How can you pay down debt when it's debt? You know what I mean?
So if
how can people be that stupid? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's like paying off your credit card with a credit card.
Right. And so if we happened to be at Jekyll Island in 1910, we're with Warburg and the rest, and we were running the show, and you created the Robert Reserve dollar, and I'll be the Bank of Jerry, the National Bank of Jerry. So in 1913, we reconvene, and we initiate this, and you loan me money that you print out of thin air with an interest attached to it. Well, even if I don't want the deal after I've taken it, and I hand you back your $1 million first dollars, how am I going to pay that interest, that $10,000 interest on the $1 million when it hasn't been created yet? It has not been created.
No.
And so it's a perpetual scheme. And our founding fathers warned us of this. They said never to let anyone coin your money.
Well,
and to base it off something that has real value, gold, silver.
Right. Well, as Thomas Jefferson said, if we ever let a central bank take over, our children will wake up homeless in the land their fathers fought for. And look at homelessness exploding.
Right.
And so everything that Jefferson said way back when is coming true today.
They were brilliant.
Homelessness is
Yes.
exploding.
The mass psychological operation that has created this thought process in a lot of young people, do you think it comes from the fact that they haven't faced any hardship? Do you think that the average human being should face some hardship in their life, especially at the beginning, to understand what is provided for them? Do they lose perspective on what it actually means to till your own soil, to build your own house, to make your own products, and therefore life became too easy? Is that one of the...
It could be. I mean, you're asking me questions. I've been looking for answers for myself.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
The fact that when communism comes in, and you're very astute in finance, but isn't it true that if communism takes full hold, as it did in Russia with Lenin and Stalin Lenin and Trotsky hiring Stalin to come in and run the regime, or Chairman Mao, it doesn't really matter if you're a billionaire, they're just going to take you out and execute you anyway.
Well, they're doing that to Donald Trump right now in the court system. I mean, that's what's going on with President Trump. He and I wrote 2 books. He's a good man. He's a very good man. What they're doing to him is fascism. Hardcore, and nobody says anything. How can they prosecute a man like that when Biden takes money from Russia, China, Ukraine? The FBI loses Hunter Biden's laptop? Give me a break.
It's been weaponized.
Yeah, look, what happened to the FBI? They're communists. SOBs are communists right now. You know, they're actually Gestapo. That's what I go. You lost a laptop?
They didn't lose it.
I can lose a credit card, but I can lose a credit, you know.
But you know,
How
when
much can you
when you were
believe?
growing up, the FBI had a sterling reputation, did it not?
What's
You
that?
thought the FBI had a sterling reputation? It was
It
about
did,
law and
yes.
order, and it did.
Yes.
This transformation that's happening is coming from somewhere. It's coming from education system, media, all these other judicial system. You can see that with what you're just talking about. Turning a blind eye to one's crime while paying attention to one that doesn't commit crime is a form of censorship, freedom of speech, which we're going to have the conference on tomorrow evening. When a country gets into this position, how does it get out? How do we get out of it?
Well, I think people should read the Communist Manifesto. It's only about 50 pages. It was in 1848. And it said that communism would take over the free world in 2 stages. Stage 1 would be through education. Stage 2 would be through elections.
Stage 2 for the elections.
Yeah.
You said, yeah.
And that's what's, more or less, that's what it said. So stage 1 is Columbia University, where the anti-Semitic riots are going on right now. Columbia University, back in 1930, went to Germany and hired Marxist school teachers to teach at Columbia University's Teachers College. That was 1930. So I go to school in New York in 1965, and that was a rioting against Vietnam. Remember that there was all this rioting going on, all this. So now it's anti-Semitic, or whatever they're doing. We're no longer in education, we're in indoctrination. Indoctrinating people to not think for themselves, to drink the Kool-Aid of Marxism. That's my point of view. I'm a U.S. Marine, I'm an Academy graduate. You know, I killed a lot of them in Vietnam. Economics teacher went down 3 times in World War II. I went down 3 times in Vietnam. I kept coming back. But I still ask the question, how come their communist fighters fight harder than ours? How can the NVA keep fighting harder than we fought? Our South Vietnamese guys were pussies. They turned around and ran. I'm going, what is wrong with this?
We know behind communism is if you turn and run, you get shot.
What's that?
In communism, if you turn and run, you get shot from
I
the
don't
people
know
behind
about-
you.
I don't know about that.
Well, like in Russia in World War II,
it might
there
be.
was a line there that Stalin said, if you turn and run, you will be shot.
Jerry, all I
So,
do is
I'm
tell
sorry?
you what I saw. I fought communism from a little helicopter gunship,
Right. What kind of gunship did you fly?
the Huey gunship,
Okay, Huey.
the most feared weapon of the Viet Cong. We could go in and shoot really tight and close. It was really strange war, very
Yeah.
strange war.
Do you think that people understand where we're at, that we were the reserve currency of the world? And that's who was buying our debt.
Well,
And so we kept our lifestyle going because, as you mentioned out here, you're paying a credit card with another credit card with another credit card with another credit card. That ended. That has ended. The BRICS nations is putting a stop to that. A lot of other nations are putting a stop to that. Do you think that the war that's brewing now has anything to do with maintaining a world reserve currency?
I can't tell you, but I think that's why Bitcoin showed up. And there's gold and silver. So the thing I like about Bitcoin, my generation, boomer generation, we're in serious trouble. We're the first generation was what's called defined contribution pension plan, IR, or 401k or IRA. The boomer generation is broke. They're retiring as we talk right now. And the things I hear on the underground is this going to be one of the biggest financial disasters, a boomer generation without financial education. And when this S&P crashes and wipes everything out, you're going to have, 85 million boomers without money?
So what you're saying is that the boomers themselves are broke, or the trusts that they were granted as far as Social Security is bust, and there's no one behind paying it. What are you saying, that they're the boomers
No,
that are?
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, what are you saying?
I'm saying they got set up. And if you just understand, money is my subject.
Yeah, sure.
When you print money, the rich get richer. The poor and middle class get poorer.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is a guy like me, I don't own stocks. I have stocks, but they're my companies. I took them public. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a capitalist. But the average boomer is stuck in the stock market. The S&P 500 is all-time high. The good news is gold and silver are going up faster than S&P. But when this S&P drops, I think it's like, Charlie Brown and Peanuts and Lucy, they'll pull the football away. The boomers, 75 million, whatever how many they are left, broke. And so some of the things I've been listening to, the reason the younger guys are smarter, the Bitcoin guys, they know that the boomer generation is going down. And they're going to have to print money to bail out the boomers in mass. We're the first generation, 1974, with a thing called, it was ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which led to the 401k. I wouldn't touch a 401k. Like, oh, I have a 401k. Getting fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find it strange that the S&P 500 is at its all-time high, and so gold and silver is also, because it's usually a hedge. As things get worse in the economy, gold and silver goes up, and when things get better in the economy, gold and silver goes down a little bit. Do you find it strange that they're both going up at the same time? And do you think that there's any fact that there's any type of quantitative easing going into financial institutions to prop things up?
It's all propped up, man. The gold and silver market is the most corrupt market there is. I know. I own gold mines and silver mines. It's 100% manipulated by Wall Street. But the difference is that the younger people, the Gen Z or X, whatever they call them today, they understand why they're buying Bitcoin, because they know the dollar is corrupt. The boomers do not know the dollar is corrupt. That's the problem.
They still have a belief in the system. There's full faith and credit of the
They drank the Kool-Aid. But I think the problem was that I went to Vietnam twice. Once as a midshipman, I was a student, I'm an academy graduate. And it was in Vietnam, it was 1966. And I'm walking on the beach, much like here at Myrtle Beach and all this. And I go to this little bar. I'm a 19-year-old kid, and I asked the bartender, this young lady, I said, "Are there any Viet Cong around here?" She goes, "Man, are you stupid?" She says, "They're sitting right there." So I walked over to these two young guys, my age.
Right.
So you guys have VC? Oh, and we sign language and all this stuff. And I realized they were fighting because they had no money. Americans were fat and stupid, So I'm talking to these guys, doing my best with English and all this. They just wanted what we had. But they didn't know how to get it in a communist country except to take it. So where I was fighting in Vietnam, look at the French Riviera, most beautiful chateaus and all that. They're all burned and bombed out. They hated the rich. And that's the basics of most academics. They hate rich people.
Well, that's the Communist Manifesto that's that encompassed, is it not?
Yes, but it's
class warfare.
It's the academics who hate rich people. But that's why they think Trump is stealing the money. That's what's going on. Communism is alive and well in America.
Absolutely.
And it's by our academics who can't understand why a guy like me and Trump make millions of dollars, pay no taxes legally. We know the system. That's why Trump, when he was debating Hillary, said, and Donald Trump doesn't pay any taxes. And he goes, because I'm smart. If you're a capitalist, you don't pay taxes. But they don't know that because they don't teach it in school. And you can do it legally. America was founded as a tax revolt. 1773 was a thing called the Boston Tea Party. Remember that?
Yes.
And we revolted against Mother England's taxes. And then Marx said, if you read the Communist Manifesto, he says that a progressive income tax is essential for the spread of communism. Other thing that Marx said was that workers of the world unite, labor unions. So my poor dad was my real father, PhD, academic. He was the head of the teachers union. And today the NEA, National Education Association, National Extortion Association, as Forbes calls them. They're the most powerful union in America. We're run by communists, teachers.
It's the communist mindset.
And they're bad people. That's like you're
Like you said, they don't know any better, some of.
That's how they're indoctrinated. It's not education, it's indoctrination.
What do you think the importance of film, media, entertainment, which is massive, in the psychological conditioning of telling stories from one perspective to help lead to this outcome?
Depends on the storyteller, as you know.
It's a very powerful media.
It's powerful, but there's more communication now than ever before. Look at YouTube. They're
Right.
pumping stuff out constantly. So even CBS, NBC, ABC, they're having trouble.
They're failing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if
Eventually,
they're failing. But
well, if they're not propped up by outside sources, it's not. They don't have the same reach that they used to.
Right.
It's like print. And I'm not saying this derogatorily, but print is failing. It's going away. It's going by the way. It's too expensive to print papers and ship them around. Digitally, it's okay. But what I mean by that, with when I said about film, as communism takes more and more of a hold, and the woke agenda takes more and more of a hold, why doesn't the people who are more traditional in their thought process create media? What is stopping them?
I don't know. That's not my. I just fight back the way I can. Fight.
Right.
I write.
Do you
books.
think it would be an important endeavor?
It might be. Look, there's
Yeah.
so much. There's so many opinions floating in the world. How does one stand out? So that's why I think it's important that Bitcoin and crypto is coming up, because at least the younger generation, not the boomers. Boomers are really stupid. They still drink the Kool-Aid every morning.
Right.
You know. But
So you think Bitcoin's the future
but I'm saying
currency?
The reason Bitcoin is coming on strong is because the younger generation knows something's wrong. Boomers don't know it, and they're going to find out the hard way when the S&P goes down, and their 401k is toast. I've read several books on the whole thing. The Rich Dad's Prophecy. I wrote it after the 2008 crash. I said the biggest crash is still coming, because all they did was set up the boomers. They just set us up. They printed so much money. I'll say it again. When you print money, I get rich. Poor middle class get poor. Because what happens when you print money, it's inflation of real assets like gold, silver, real estate, oil, cattle. Real assets increase in
Food.
value. But what happens to the poor middle class is food gets more expensive, fuel gets more expensive. So inflation, what the Fed's doing, I knew what those guys are doing. They're destroying the middle class. But Americans are not smart enough to know that. They sit there and go, oh, what's happening on TV tonight? You know?
What do you think their ultimate? What is their desired outcome? What do you feel, in your opinion, is the desired outcome to destroy the middle class?
Communism.
So that a few rule. So that a few rule and everyone else is the slave.
Centralized government, centralized thinking. You know. But there's no easy answer, and movies are.
Well, how do you change it then? Like how do we bring about a society that's better? Or
I'll tell you this much, okay? I'll tell you a story.
right.
I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad for the same reasons you're angry about what's going on today.
Mhm.
My poor dad's a good man, Marxist. He liked labor unions, taxes, hated the rich.
Mhm.
It's that simple. And then my rich dad was a capitalist.
Mhm.
They naturally hate each other because they're different. It's not that any different than that. It's
Well,
just,
I
just
wouldn't-
different points of view.
I wouldn't say honestly, I wouldn't say a business person hates someone who has the mindset of an academic. I think it sets in when the lives start become destroyed. I think it sets in when infrastructure starts to be
Okay, whatever you
destroyed.
want.
Yeah,
You have your opinion.
yeah,
I went there, man.
yeah.
I sat there, I looked at these young guys who were my age.
Right,
I didn't hate them, they didn't hate me.
right.
But a few years later, we were killing each other.
Yeah.
It's
A
all
war is hell.
And I think it's jealousy is a basic word of it.
Jealousy of those who have, by the ones that are told, like in the manifesto, the workers' parties unite.
You should read.
I've read it. And I think everybody, I agree with you that I think it should be required reading in school and tests given on it, just like you much do for a novel or whatever. so that people understand it. So other than that, what are you seeing in the investment world coming today other than Bitcoin? Anything that's interesting on the horizon?
I'm trying to tell you something, man. The rich are getting so rich. I mean, today, the rich are like 25 times richer than ever before. There's no financial education in our schools because our schools are run by Marxists. If you can understand that simple idea, that's why they don't teach money at school.
You think it's a concerted effort to keep them from learning?
Yep. From what I understand, there was a guy named John D. Rockefeller. He took over the General Education Board back in the 1930s or something. And that's why they control what is taught in school. So I had to write Rich Dad, Poor Dad as soon as you have a documentary. My book was turned down by Rich Dad, Poor Dad is today, after 28 years, the #1 selling book in history, in finance. It was turned down by every publisher in New York. I had to self-publish the book because no publishers would touch it. So I thought that was really interesting. So I self-published it back in 1997, and today, after 20-something years, it's still, as Publishers Weekly, is still #1 personal finance and growing. The people are getting educated, and that's all I want to say. Otherwise, you can incite them saying the rich are screwing you and all this. Nobody's screwing anybody. People are not smart, they're not educated. There's no financial education in schools. What else can you say? Why don't they do that? I don't know.
Well, I think we all have our opinions on why they don't. And, and it's an opinion.
I
But
don't give a shit. What are you going to do about it?
well, I try to educate people through film, through media, and this and that. That's what I'm trying to do. But
All I'm saying is the individual who is poor, say you're making only $100,000 a year, and you can't make it because inflation keeps going up, and you see your neighbor driving around a nice car and all this stuff. It's only human nature. But I asked the poor guy or the person struggling, I'm like, what are you going to do about it? They don't do anything. They don't do anything. They just, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a job and get a 401k. They're indoctrinated.
yeah,
It's not the word, you know what education means? Definition of education comes from the Latin word educe, to draw out. It's not educe, it's not education, it's indoctrination right now. That's the problem.
the way I see the schools, the education system at the grade school, high school levels before you get to college, is to train people to become part of the corporate world. It's a plug and play system. The smarter ones will become the managers, and the lower ones will become the workers. And it's a system, but it's not a system of freedom to express yourself in your own business. I lasted in the corporate world about 5 months. I went on my own, and so but I come from both sides of entrepreneurs, of my family. You spoke to the young lady when you first come through here. We were just having a conversation about, she said, well, you built your own house when you were 27. I sold a restaurant, a bakery that I started, and physically built my own house. That's how I learned how to do it, because my dad did it. And we grew up that way. It's escape. And one thing my dad always did was escape the financial markets by becoming your own, whatever you want to do in life. I know you're not into this. I know you believe in debt heavily, and I understand your perspective of it. His was always to stay debt-free all his life so that he was never enslaved by the bank, but he went through the Depression. So he was there when the banks closed.
You can't escape the debt system if you're using fiat currency.
Right. But
I think we're talking at different levels of finance.
yeah, it is. It's different levels.
The average person thinks debt is a mortgage and a credit card. The dollar, the yen, the euro, the peso, they're all debt. If you're stupid, somebody will take your money. This guy, Michael Saylor, he's a Bitcoin guy. He says, what do you call a person who saves fiat money? Poor. And that's why you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In the book, I say savers are losers. Your house is not an asset. The rich don't work for money because it's all debt. But I use debt as money. I had to educate myself to do that. That's what I want to get to. I don't want to be inflammatory all the time.
No,
the solution is, if money is debt, learn to use it.
How would a young person coming along today? They're 18 years old. They don't have much capital to work off of, so they can't just go into the bank and they have the collateral to go borrow money. How do they get into the game? How do they get into it?
If you're stupid, you're stupid.
I'm sorry?
You're stupid, you're poor. That's that simple. If you're not that stupid, you're middle class. That's.
But how do you break out of that? How does the average person break out of that?
Not my problem, man. You want to get educated, you get educated. But most people go to school to get a job. And they work for money and they save money, have a 401k. They're screwed. Look at the national debt today is what, 40-something trillion? Our debt to GDP is 136. Holy mackerel, we are bankrupt. And that's why when I talk to younger people, I say, your life is going to be a lot harder than mine. Boomers had it easy, but the boomers are going to get their day in court now because they put so much faith in the 401k. I don't have a 401k. I wouldn't touch one. Most school teachers are Marxists. They belong to a union. They hate the rich. They believe in paying taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a guy like Donald Trump go on national television and debating Hillary, and she says, but you don't pay taxes because I'm smart. I say the same thing. America was founded as a debt-free as a tax revolt in 1773. We always fought taxes, but our school system says you should pay taxes. So who are you going to listen to? You know, before 1776, you know, the Revolutionary War was a tax revolt, Boston Tea Party. Just know your history. That's education. Look at the facts.
Right.
Okay? Or you can listen to poor people, they'll tell you the rich are evil, and a lot of them are. Look at, I always said, watch what a man does, not what they say. Look
Right.
at Biden. He takes down Trump's wall, right? Fentanyl pours across the border. Trafficking goes up. The next thing that Biden did was he appointed 88,000 IRS agents to collect taxes. The other thing he did was he cut the Keystone XL pipeline from Canada to America. So when Trump was president, I was selling oil at $30 a barrel. The day that Biden came in, he cut the Keystone XL pipeline. Oil went from $30 to $130 a barrel. Now, I was very happy because that meant I make $130 a barrel. But unfortunately, I knew exactly what Biden was doing. In this DEI, you know, the green stuff and all this ESG and all this stuff they talk about, he cutting the price of oil sent inflation through the roof, and then he printed more money. So as I'm trying to say to people like that, inflation makes the rich richer, but it makes the poor and middle class poorer. It's that simple. What you do with it is up to you. You can send your kid back to school to learn to have a job and 401k and you know, hold
Right.
hands and sing Kumbaya. But our education system's run by Marxists. When I came in from Vietnam in 1973, January 10th, 1973, we landed at Norton Air Force Base. The pilot of the plane comes on and he goes, "Gentlemen, I suggest you run into the terminal as fast as you can, change into civilian clothes. America has changed." We go, "What happened?" As soon as I stepped out onto the road, I got hit by rotten eggs. The hippies, all the love children, you know, from Woodstock and all the love and peace guys, they were spitting on us. I go, wow. And I had just come back from Vietnam where I asked the question. So I'll only tell you what I saw. Their Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese fought harder than the South Vietnamese. So why were these Marxist hippies, communists, throwing eggs on us? That's what's going on. It's indoctrination, not education.
Do you see anything changing in the future at all, or a hope for it?
Get rich.
Get rich.
I don't need a job. I don't need a 401k. I don't save money. I save gold, silver, Bitcoin, Solana. You know, I stay away from anything the government prints.
You said Solana. What is that?
That's one of the coins.
It's another like a Bitcoin type, cryptocurrency type.
Ethereum, so
Okay.
there's
Okay.
thousands now. I just don't save dollars.
Don't save dollars.
So I save gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Because Bitcoin was designed to get stronger and stronger. So the purchasing power of Bitcoin goes up. The US dollar was designed to lose purchasing power. But the whole dollar system was designed to steal our wealth. The people that work for money and save money are being ripped off. But try and say that to the normal person who's been programmed, well, I've got to have a job, I've got to pay the bills, I've got to have a credit card. Until they understand what I'm saying to you is the US dollar, all fiat money, which is the peso, the yen, the euro, and all that, was designed to take your wealth via the money. The US dollar is designed to steal your wealth. And that's why the people who came up with Bitcoin gets stronger. That's why there's only 21 million being made. Bitcoin will get stronger. Dollar gets weaker.
Real quick, because I guess we're running out of time on the camera. Your thoughts on the freedom of speech and censorship and where we're at in today's times?
We're being censored. But anytime, you said it earlier about fear. Anytime you're afraid of speaking up, you're being censored. Mm-hmm. So the job is what you're doing is you're fighting back through your medium, which is video. I fight back with books. Mm-hmm. The point is, no matter what they do, they can't stop you. But if you let them stop you because of fear, then you lost.
And there's power in numbers if enough people stand up.
It's cliche.
Well, no, but it's true.
Cliche.
I don't know. I'll take it as true. If enough people say enough.
I saw the communists stand up and kick our asses.
Yeah.
That's why I say, how many did you kill? I had to kill a lot of them. We'd call in airstrikes. They kept coming at us. They wanted to win more than we wanted to win. And that's going on in our school system right now.
Determination.
They want to win.
Yeah. And we should want to win. And I think what the main thing I wanted to do this for was to let other people know, not the people who have already made it, but younger people who are coming along to see a different version or a different side than what they're being taught in school.
I think the young people know they're in trouble. That's why Bitcoin, that's why they don't drink the same Kool-Aid the boomers drink. So Gen Z is in pretty good shape because they're more aware. They have the cell phone. They have more access to clean information. But they'll still be attracted to information they're attracted to.
Right.
So if you want to believe the rich are cruel, you'll join them. If I believe that the rich have freedom, I'll join them. But I'm not trying to censor anybody.
I know you're not.
I just want to put out my information here.
Sure.
I agree with what you're saying. My choice was to be free, to never need money. To have so much money coming in, I don't need it.
It's freedom.
Yeah.
It's true freedom.
But if you need a job and you're paying taxes, you're in trouble.
Do you think that that's part, like when we talk about freedom, about being wealthy or rich, is that's part of communism, is to take that away so you don't have your freedom? And because money is freedom.
You got it.
Money is freedom.
Well, it depends on how you, it's not money.
Well, what it buys. And you're...
Well, it's not, please understand, it's just not that simple. It's not money, it's how you make your money. See, I could be selling fentanyl and making a lot of money.
Well, it's true, but it's different.
Or I could be a banker. Or I could be this guy Fauci who was selling the vaccine that's...
Let's talk about good things. Not that.
Well, I'm trying to say.
I'm teasing about that.
People think Fauci is a good man. I'm going,
well,
I didn't take that vaccine, but it's killing a lot of kids.
A lot of people are dropping dead.
Yep. But who's going to go after Fauci? Nobody. Bobby Kennedy Jr. did.
Yes.
I think it was a ruse, personally.
I can't tell you how much it means for you to be here and to help. And I think there's two passionate people sitting here.
We fight for the same thing.
Yes.
In different ways.
And it's frustrating to watch it go down as we're watching it from a visual perspective of watching it on the landscape of people. And it's like you want to yell out and you want to grab people by the shoulder and say, wake up. Wake up, get educated, and learn where money comes from and all the other rest.
Get off the system.
Yeah, get off the system. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.